My brother called me at 1:43 in the morning, screaming that they were inside his apartment. When I got there, he was holding a knife and he didn't know who I was. It didn't happen overnight. It started months earlier. With locked doors, strange notebooks, and whispers about people following him. I told myself it was stress. But by the time I realized the truth that his mind was unraveling, it was already too late. This is the terrifying story of how my brother slipped away. And what it took to pull him back. Ethan was the golden one in our family, the oldest sibling, the one who set the bar so high it sometimes felt like the rest of us were just chasing his shadow. He was charismatic without trying. The kind of guy who could walk into a room of strangers and leave with 3 new friends and 2 job offers. Our childhood was filled with the kind of sibling banter only 2 people who shared the same tiny bedroom could understand. Late-night whispers, shared inside jokes, mock arguments over who got the bigger slice of pizza. He was my first protector, my first teacher, my first rival. By the time he hit his late 20s, Ethan had what most people would call a stable, enviable life. A decent job in IT, a small but stylish apartment downtown, a tight circle of friends, and a reputation for being dependable. Family dinners weren't complete without his sarcastic commentary and the way he always managed to get mom to laugh even when she was stressed. He wasn't perfect, nobody is, but he was solid. Grounded. Or so I thought. It started small, a single, strange text at 3:07 a.m. You ever feel like someone's watching you? I was half asleep when I saw it, groggy and confused. I replied with a question mark. But by the time I did, Ethan had already sent, forget it. Bad dream. The next morning, he brushed it off. Said he'd been up late working and got spooked by shadows outside his window. We laughed about it over coffee, but it didn't stop there. Over the next few weeks, Ethan started changing things in his apartment. At first, it seemed like normal stuff, a new deadbolt, heavier curtains, rearranging his furniture. But then came the chain on his bedroom door. When I asked why, he shrugged. Better safe than sorry. He'd say it like a joke, but his eyes would flick toward the windows. Like he was checking to make sure no one was listening. It wasn't just at home. At family dinners, he'd angle his chair so he could see the front door. He'd pause mid-sentence if someone walked behind him in a restaurant, and then there were the notebooks. One night, when I stopped by his place, I saw them stacked on the coffee table, 4 thick spiral-bound notebooks filled with tiny, cramped handwriting. When I asked what they were, he quickly shoved them into a drawer. Just notes for a project, he said, too quickly. Ethan used to call me every few days. Sometimes just to tell me about a dumb meme he saw, sometimes to vent about work. But the calls slowed, then stopped altogether. When I texted, he'd take hours, sometimes days, to reply. And when he did, his messages were shorter, more clipped. Busy, later, not a good time. Mom noticed it too. She called me one afternoon, her voice tight. Have you talked to your brother? He seemed distracted when he stopped by. Wouldn't take his jacket off. Kept checking his phone. I told her I'd talk to him. But in truth, I was already starting to feel a knot in my stomach. Something was off, and I didn't know how to name it yet. The turning point in those early days came one rainy Thursday night. I was at home when my phone rang. Ethan. His voice was low, urgent. Can you come over? Now? No explanation, just that. I grabbed my keys and drove across town. When I got there, he was standing in the hallway of his building, barefoot, holding a baseball bat. What's going on? I asked, my heart pounding. He motioned for me to follow him inside. The place was a mess, couch cushions flipped over, drawers pulled out, closet doors open. Someone's been in here, he whispered. I know it. Things aren't where I left them. I tried to calm him down. Told him maybe he'd just misplaced things. But he shook his head violently. No. They're watching me. They want something. I didn't know who they were. Neither did he, not really. But the certainty in his voice chilled me. This was the first time I realized that whatever was happening, it wasn't just stress, it was something deeper. Something that was pulling him away from the world we both knew and into one only he could see. After that night with the baseball bat, things started moving faster like a snowball picking up speed down a hill. Ethan didn't just add more locks, he fortified his apartment like it was a bunker. He nailed boards behind the curtains so no one could peek in. He bought a white noise machine and let it run all day and night. When I came over, the air felt different, stale, heavy, like the room itself was holding its breath. "They can't get through this," he told me one afternoon, gesturing to the extra locks. His eyes were wide and proud, the way someone might look showing off a home renovation. The problem was, there was no they. At least, not for me. He stopped going to work. At first, he claimed he was taking vacation days, but weeks passed and his paychecks stopped coming. His boss called me, not him, asking if Ethan was okay. I didn't know how to answer. His friends reached out less and less. The last time I saw him with anyone from his old life, it was his best friend Marcus, standing in the hallway outside Ethan's apartment, looking frustrated. "I've tried, man," Marcus told me quietly. "But he won't let me in. Keep saying I'm compromised." That was Ethan's new word, compromised. If someone asked too many questions, if they doubted him even once, they were compromised. And once you were labeled that, you were out. One day, he actually showed me the notebooks again. Dozens of them now, stacked high in the corner. Inside were pages and pages of what looked like surveillance logs. 2:14 p.m. van parked outside. Same one from last Tuesday. Driver wearing sunglasses. 3:42 a.m. heard tapping on wall. Patterned. 3 short, 2 long. When I asked if he had proof, he got irritated. "This is the proof. You just don't see it yet." It was like talking to someone in a locked room. Except the room was his own mind, and he'd thrown away the key. I tried everything, inviting him over for dinner, bringing him meals, suggesting we go out just for a walk. But every time, there was an excuse. They might follow us, too many cameras outside, not safe. At one point, I brought Mom with me. I thought maybe seeing her would break through whatever wall he'd built. For a moment it worked. He hugged her, even laughed when she brought up an old story from when we were kids, but halfway through the visit, he froze, staring at the window. His smile vanished. "You shouldn't have come here," he said. His voice was flat, cold. "They'll know now." We left 10 minutes later. Mom cried the whole way home. I researched mental health interventions, called clinics, even spoke to a crisis hotline about my options. But the truth was, unless Ethan agreed to get help, my hands were tied and he didn't trust anyone anymore. The one time I mentioned therapy, he snapped, "Therapists are just trained to make you doubt yourself. They work for them." His paranoia had swallowed the part of him that used to reason, to joke, to love without suspicion. It was early December, the first snow of the year. I decided to stop by without warning, hoping to catch him in a good moment. When I knocked, there was no answer. But I could hear movement inside, quick, frantic steps. Then the sound of something being dragged across the floor. "Ethan, it's me," I called. "Open the door." A long pause. Then, "How do I know it's you?" It hit me then he wasn't asking a question. He genuinely didn't know. When he finally opened the door, he looked thinner, paler, like he hadn't seen sunlight in weeks. Behind him, every piece of furniture was pushed against the walls, leaving the center of the room empty. "They can't hide in the corners if there are no corners," he said, smiling faintly. I didn't know what to say. All I knew was that my brother, the golden, dependable, joking older brother, was gone. And I had no idea if I'd ever get him back. The call came at 1:43 a.m. At first, I thought I was dreaming. My phone was buzzing on the nightstand, and when I saw Ethan on the screen, my heart sank. He never called at night anymore, only texted, if at all. "They're inside," he said before I could even speak. His voice was frantic, breathless. "They're here right now." I was already pulling on jeans. "Call the police." "I can't." "They are the police," he said, and then the line went dead. I drove like a maniac through the empty streets, the snow whipping across my windshield. When I got to his building, the front door was propped open, a cold wind rushing through the lobby. His apartment door was ajar. Inside, the place was a war zone. The notebooks were scattered across the floor, pages torn out. The white noise machine was smashed, and in the middle of the room, Ethan stood with a kitchen knife, his eyes wild. "Stay back," he warned. "They might have gotten to you." My throat tightened. "It's me. It's your sister. There's no one else here." But he wasn't listening. He was scanning the walls, the ceiling, even the floor, like he expected them to open up and swallow him. I inched forward, keeping my voice calm. "You're safe. I'm here. Let's put the knife down, okay?" For a moment, I thought I'd reached him. His grip loosened just slightly. But then his gaze darted over my shoulder, and he screamed a raw, guttural sound that ripped through the room. I didn't have a choice. I called 911. It took 4 police officers and 2 EMTs to get him to the hospital. He fought them the whole way, shouting about conspiracies and hidden transmitters in their badges. When they finally strapped him to the gurney, his eyes met mine. "I thought you were different," he said quietly. "But you're one of them too." Those words still hit me harder than anything else. The doctors called it acute psychosis. They said it had probably been building for months, maybe years, and that without intervention, it could have spiraled into something even more dangerous. He spent 6 weeks in an inpatient psychiatric unit. The first few days, he wouldn't talk to me at all. Then, slowly, he started letting me visit. Sometimes he'd be lucid, we'd laugh, reminisce, even play cards like we used to. Other times, he'd still whisper about them, his voice low so the nurses wouldn't hear. The medication helped, but it dulled him. The spark in his eyes, the one that made Ethan was dimmer now. When he was finally discharged, he didn't go back to his old apartment. Mom and I helped him move into a small place closer to her, somewhere quieter, with fewer shadows to watch. We don't talk about them anymore. Not directly. But sometimes I'll catch him glancing at the window a little too long, or hesitating before answering the phone. I've learned not to push, because the truth is, I don't know if the brother I grew up with is ever fully coming back, and maybe that's the part that scares me most. Not the night with the knife, not the weeks in the hospital, but the quiet, constant reminder that insanity doesn't come all at once. It comes in whispers, and if you're not careful, it takes someone you love so slowly, you don't realize they're gone until you're standing in the empty space where they used to be.